This is Turn 1 Thoughtseize. I'm Ahren.
And I'm Zach.
And this is episode 84, A Bridge Below Troubled Water. Nothing?
No, yeah, I didn't really.
Got nothing? All right, that's fine.
Oh, man, bring it.
You caught me off guard there, man. I thought we got rid of the
I know, it's just...
the
it's
weird
just,
names that just came out of nowhere.
it's just so perfect. I know.
It fits well, I'm not going to lie.
Right. I mean, it's relevant. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
So we will start out this episode with new patron shoutouts. We have an update for a new affiliate code, some merch updates. Then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes, Pro Tour, decks on the rise, little brew update, and then with some excellent questions from our Discord. And that is probably going to be the bulk, the fiber of the meal.
The fiber?
I don't know. The meat in the sandwich.
Okay.
I don't know. I used that metaphor earlier today, and it stuck in my head.
Right.
Meat and potatoes. Ha-ta-ta. All right. Anyways, so a big shout out to our new patrons, Philip, Julian, Rick, and Casey. Just a reminder, a change from previous months, that starting August 1st, all patrons now have access to the Discord. The Discord is pretty bumping, I gotta say. There's a lot of stuff going on there. There's Rug Delver development happening in the Decklist channel, showing off foils, talking about neat cards. One of our Discord members posted up an eBay code that I hadn't seen earlier today, so if you need...
I already got on that, dude. I bought some groves of the Burn Willows today.
Oh, I should get those. I should get those while they're still cheap.
They are surprisingly cheap for what they used to be right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're like $20 now, right?
Yeah, Iconic Masters really helped out on that one.
Yeah. I mean, it's really only sees play in like 2 decks, and one of those decks is not played at all right now, so...
Well, the other one happens to be like the best deck in Modern, so...
Sure.
Potentially the best deck.
Sure. A best deck in Modern. Yeah. So... we had previously had an affiliate program through Original Magic Art. They recently revamped their affiliate program. So if you go to the website, originalmagicart.store, you can use the code Thoughtseize at checkout, and it will save you 10% on orders of $10 or more. We get a little kickback from that. Doesn't cost you anything, saves you money, helps us out. You can also use we have a custom URL as well. If you go to Original Magic Art store, or originalmagicart.store/Thoughtseize, you can just order through there, and it will help us out as well. Josh, the guy that runs it, is a very good guy. He is a longtime friend of the show, and the playmats that he sets up, so he'll go to the artist and sort of help them through the process of like getting all the stuff, because they're allowed to make playmats now, but there's restrictions and, you know, sort of hoops that they have to jump through. And I don't know if you've ever worked with artists before, but not all of them are great at jumping through like business hoops.
Sure.
Kind of a hassle. So he does a really great job of facilitating that whole thing. And there are a number of like insane playmats. Like he has Baleful Strix and the original Blightning and Bloodghast and Cruel Ultimatum and the new Cryptic Command. like Desolation Angel, the Dominator. Oh, that one's sold out.
Go back to the Cryptic Command.
Go back to the Cryptic Command.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so like the Iconic Masters Cryptic Command art, that's the promo Fast Bond art, Gilder Bairn, like a lot of the some of them have sold out, but I mean Karn Liberated, like if you're gonna play, you can just get a big old Karn Daddy from the waist up, plastered across a huge playmat. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Stoneforge Mystic on a playmat.
Yeah.
And Walking Ballista. Just really want to terrorize people. To remind them how good that card is. Go grab some playmats. Either go to our link, official or original magicart.store/Thoughtseize, or use our code Thoughtseize at checkout, and you will save some cashola. Speaking of merchandise, our merchandise, the first sort of like big new art craziness, is coming soon. Waiting for the final tweaked version of the art, and then it will be plastered on everything you can possibly imagine, and hopefully people will like that. I'm going to do something special for patrons that is going to involve, I believe at this point, I think I'm just going to do whatever you have like pledged up to this point. I'm just going to count that as like credit towards the first wave. So if you're a $3 a month patron and you've been a patron for 3 months, then you'll get $9 off, which means that Brian, our Scion of Darkness, will just get a free playmat. So, which I am totally fine with.
Yeah.
So another thing I'm looking at, like big picture, I'm looking at getting sleeves made at some point. I would really like to do the Dragon Sleeve custom art ones.
Dragon Shield, you mean?
Or Dragon Shield, I'm sorry.
Yes.
The Dragon Shield custom art ones. Because, man, those are nice. Based on the sort of brief Twitter exchange that I had with them, it looks like they are almost there. So I'm going to keep on that because I would like to do that. Also, if people,
awesome. I'm excited for it.
If people have suggestions of things, like if people want like water bottles and, you know, that kind of stuff, we can certainly do that. We can smush it on whatever people want. So, do not be afraid to point out whatever you like. I mean, obviously, Twitter, Discord, easy places to get a hold of us. Corrections and addenda, we had none. So last week, or the last episode, was flawless.
I don't know about that, but it is nice to know that we didn't make any huge mistakes.
We did correct. By my bar for flawless is we did not make any glaring errors.
Yeah, no, we didn't set the world on fire, I guess.
Correct. All right, Pro Tour. There was one.
Yes, let's get to what the people really came here for.
Indeed.
Yeah, the actual event was the SEG team format, which is Standard, Modern, and Legacy. So it is hard to kind of glean a ton of information from the Modern results, right? Where it's like, we don't get the, you know, this deck took it down, this deck, you know, put this many copies in the top 8. You can't really do that with this event because, first of all, it's teams. So, you know, the Modern player who finished in, you know, top 4 might have actually done bad, and, you know, vice versa. It might be a team that went 0-6. They had their Modern player go 6-0. So you can't really take that like 100%, but at the same time, you can take a lot of information from what people chose to play, how they chose to how they choose to build their decks and their sideboards, and how represented decks were amongst decks people chose to play. So we've kind of distilled a bunch of information for you guys, and we're about to get to it right here.
Indeed. So the only notable thing, I just want to touch on Legacy for like 2 seconds. Longtime listeners will remember when I played Death Shadow in Legacy at GP Vegas last year, and most people were like, this is dumb. And then one person was like, are you testing with Raptor? And I was like, I am not, clearly.
Yeah, right.
However, that deck is so legit in Legacy, and I just, like, they showed a couple of the matches. There was one in particular where it was just like, oh, it was magical. Snuff out for the win. Just, love it. Snuff out is one of my favorite cards. Also, the sickest tech in the entire thing, format irrelevant, Throne of Geth in the sideboard to get around Chalice of the Void.
Yeah, I mean, that's really sweet.
Chef's kiss. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
All right. So, anyways, that's all the Legacy stuff. That was my only thing. It looks like there was a bunch of people were on it. Wow, a lot of big names too.
Yeah, it looks like just the entire Channel Fireball. Anybody associated with Channel Fireball played this deck.
It's a good deck.
Yep.
All right. So, the first deck that we want to cover is Black Red Vengevine. Ooh, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. I gotta give you the shout out on this one, Aaron. I think right when we talked about Stitcher's Supplier and M19, I believe you tweeted that you thought it was going to be the missing piece for Vengevine builds in Modern.
I did indeed.
And you were spot on.
Yep.
Vengevine is really, really good now that the deck's out. If you were playing on Magic Online before this event, you will notice that you played Vengevine literally every other match you tried to play in Modern. Vengevine prices are spiking left and right. This deck's all over the place. It wins so quick. This deck is incredibly explosive, and this is in a format where Hollow One exists, and this deck is just more explosive than it. It's wild.
Yeah. So the version that we picked to talk about is the version that Josh Cho played, and it's actually has a lot of...
Well, so before we start there, like, let me give the baseline of what this deck is doing. So, the deck started kind of as, it's basically just trying to make Vengevine happen, where it has discard outlets to get out of your hand and ways to mill yourself to put Vengevine in the graveyard. And it's trying to cast Vengevine on turn 1 or 2. Like, it's trying to get one in play, attacking on turn 1 or 2. And ideally 2 in play. The problem with that is you need to cast 2 creatures to return it, right? So it's playing a lot of 0 mana creatures. A Hangerback Walker, Walking Ballista, which, you know, essentially in decks that are meaning to actually play them are 2 mana creatures or 4 mana or whatever. But in this deck, it plays Bridge from Below and these 0 mana spells so that they can return their Vengevine to play extremely quickly on turns 1 and 2. And then when you cast it, it triggers the Vengevine, and then it enters the battlefield and immediately dies because it's a creature with 0 toughness. And that triggers the Bridge from Below that they presumably milled or discarded already.
One hopes.
Yes, so that's kind of the idea. I've seen the, turn 1 looting, discard a Vengevine and a Bridge from Below, play Walking Ballista for 0, play Walking Ballista for 0. You got 2/2/2s and a Vengevine attacking on turn 1, you know? So that's kind of what they're trying to do, but the one we wanted to talk about from this event was Just Chose.
Right, so this build is different than what you will probably encounter online. There's no bushwhackers. The Bushwhacker version really capitalizes on the zombie creation. So once you have, I mean, even 3 or 4 zombies, you can play Bushwhacker. If that's your second creature, you know, you play Walking Ballista for 0, and then Bushwhacker kicked. Vengevine comes back. That trigger goes on the stack. Vengevine enters the battlefield, and then the Bushwhacker thing hits, and then all your zombies and your Vengevine and your Bushwhacker all attack. And if that's not pretty close to dead, I don't know. I can't help you, right? Like, if you can't win from there, maybe just pack it up.
The Bushwhacker is also really good. Like, it's playing Stitcher's Supplier, which is a 1-mana 1/1.
Right.
And Insolent Neonate, which is, I believe, also a 1-mana 1/1.
Yes, it has Menace. It
is Menace, yeah. But so they have, like, all these terrible creatures that kind of enable the deck. And the Bushwhacker plan was kind of like the initial build to, like, kind of be like, how do we make these bad enabling creatures we're playing not suck?
Yep.
You know, or, like, give them some sort of text.
So this version is 4 Walking Ballista, 4 Bowmat Courier, 3 Gravecrawler, 4 Insolent Neonate, 4 Stitcher Supplier, 4 Vengevine, 4 Hollow One, and 4 Street Wraith. Then 4 Looting, 1 Collective Brutality, 2 Goblin Lore, and 4 Bridge from Below, 18 lands. Very uninspiring but utilitarian sideboard. Notable for Leyline of the Void, because if there's one thing that it's going to be very hard for you to beat, it's the mirror. I can't imagine that the mirror match is very.
I mean, that's good in the mirror. It's good against. It's one of your best cards against KCI, which I'm sure is a deck that this deck is scared of, because KCI can play some very good sideboard cards against it if they want to. They're just like working their plan, like, you know, Grafdigger's Cage, Tormod's Crypt, cards of that ilk, and it also is just a fast deck that can kill them on turn 3, which, as explosive as this deck is, a lot of the times it doesn't actually kill them until turn 4. It just has created this I've already won most of the time board position by, you know, even 2 or 3, but, you know, the actual, you know, put your opponent to 0 is 4, which doesn't matter against decks like Storm and KCI, because, you know, as long as they're not at 0, they can kill you.
Right. So I think people will start playing more cages, and I think people will be very disappointed with that, because it does not impact Bridge from Below at all. And in this version, it also does not affect, like, Hollow One or anything like that. So I think if Grafdigger's Cage is your plan, you're going to be very sad, because you're just going to get run over by zombies. So you really need something that is more comprehensive.
Tormod's Crypt is a good place to go with this. Nihil Spellbomb, cards like that. Relic can be good.
The other thing too, like, to think about is if you have creatures in your sideboard that can sacrifice themselves for free, that's a real thing, because Bridge from Below is a very odd card, which I guess bears explaining. So Bridge from Below is triple black enchantment, and whenever a non-token creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, if Bridge from Below is in your graveyard, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. And when a creature is put into an opponent's graveyard from the battlefield, if Bridge from Below is in your graveyard, exile Bridge from Below. So you could theoretically cast Bridge from Below, but it has no effect in play. It only does something when it's in the graveyard. When you start to, like, go off, if your opponent sacks one of their creatures in response to the trigger, then the Bridge from Below will be gone by the time it goes to check and see if the Bridge from Below is still in your graveyard to make the zombie. So I mean, even if you're playing sort of a mid-rangey kind of deck, and you have stuff like Fulminator Mage is a great example. Viscera Seer. I mean, Insolent Neonate.
Selfless Spirit's a good one.
Selfless Spirit. Because that is the kind of effect that they're not going to be able to interact with at all, because they're just not on that. They're not trying to interact in that way. So they're not going to be like, bring in Pithing Needle to turn off your Selfless Spirit, right? Like that's 0% of the time that's going to happen.
They don't even have Pithing Needle. They can't make that play.
No. But
I mean, you're right. Like, they are playing Leyline of the Void. That's the way they get around it, is they have this cheaty face, oh, you don't have a graveyard, you can't get rid of my bridges plan.
right.
Which is why I'm saying that, like, I like cards that can attack their graveyard right now. Nile Spellbound's great against this deck. Relic is good. Rest in Peace is obviously great.
Mm-hmm.
Your own Leyline of the Voids are going to be good. The deck is now kind of built in a fashion where, like how Josh Cho built it, where, you know, they still have Hollow One, they still have other creatures they can just cast that are just fine on their own. So those will cause problems if you're just like solely relying on graveyard hate. But I think the graveyard hate is still good enough to bring in, and it needs to be cheap. Like hard casting your Leyline of the Void. Like if you brought in 4 Leyline of the Voids and it's on your opening hand, I mean, you're not going to hard cast it. That's not going to do anything. So you really should consider mulliganing to it. But at the same time,
You need to be playing a deck that mulligans well in order to do that.
yeah, I mean, you could definitely need to be doing those things. This deck is so explosive. Like, when you're playing against this deck, you need to be mulliganing very aggressively to find stuff that does stuff. Because if you don't interact with it in a meaningful way on turns like 1 and 2, like you're probably dead. The game might just be over by the time you take your third turn, where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're playing blue-white control, right? And you're like, oh, I got this Rest in Peace. I'm going to be able to cast this Supreme Verdict on turn 4. This hand's going to be great. You know, there's no, like, I'll be fine. But you have, like, 2 Celestial Colonnades as your land. You can't cast your Rip on 2. You got to wait on 3 or whatever. Well, you legitimately might be dead by then, so.
Right. I mean, there is... The deck is built in such a way that you can go, like, Blackleaf Cliff, Stitcher Supplier, Mill Over, you know, Bridge, Vengevine, cast Walking Ballista for 0, and then have Stitcher Supplier, Vengevine, and a zombie token on the battlefield turn 1.
Yep.
Like that's a very, very reasonable quote unquote opening.
I mean, and Vengevine has haste too, so they attack you for 4 when it comes into play, which is wild. I mean, it just makes the deck feel so powerful.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Where it's like, you know, you haven't taken a turn yet. They already have 7 power in play, and you're starting the game at 16 life.
Yep.
It's just
very hard to
yeah.
race. And then you know,
and also to be fair, like, I'll point out that you just like said like a Dreamland scenario, right? Where it's like, oh, I played my 1-drop that mills 3 cards. I hit 2 cards that matter, right? Except when you play against the deck, it doesn't really it just does this regularly. Like, it's built in such a way where, you know, there's enough redundancy and pieces that matter in the graveyard and like being discarded that, like, it feels like what it's doing is like, oh, they got lucky and unfair, but it just does that every game. You know?
The other thing to remember too is like Faithless Looting is a ridiculous Magic card.
Yep, and it feels, I mean, it's at its best in this deck. It feels ridiculous here.
You know, like I see the 2 Goblin Lores. I am still of the opinion that Goblin Lore is a bad card and that people shouldn't be playing it if they can avoid it. But you know, I have not won a Pro Tour, so I guess take that with a grain of salt.
I think Goblin Lore is a bad card, but in this deck, I think it's just good. Where it's like, you don't really even, like, 1, it's just an enabler for Hollow One, which this deck is already playing.
Sure.
But 2, it's just like, you don't care how it happens. You just want to turn cards off the top of your library into your graveyard. And it's like, yeah, sometimes it's going to screw you where it's like hitting your lands, but you already were presumably at 2 lands because you cast Goblin Lore.
Right.
And the deck runs off every single card it casts is a 1-mana spell or a 2-mana spell. So it's like when Goblin Lore is the absolute top of your curve, it's a lot better than when it's the bottom of your curve, for example. So in that scenario, like, yeah, Goblin Lore is not a good card, but it fits well enough in this deck that you do well to play it, I think.
Yes. If you have them, I can't conceptually get my head around paying $25 for a Goblin Lore. And that's my own hang up. It doesn't have anything to do with reality.
That's fair.
So yeah, against this deck, Supreme Verdict is bad. Wrath of God is bad. Settle the Wreckage is probably the best thing you're going to get.
There's something better, but we'll hit on that in a minute.
So that's, the traditional thing of where, like, you see a wall of creatures on the other side of the board, and you're like, I need to start killing those creatures, is true. Asterisk, every time you kill one of their creatures, they just get a free 2/2 if you can't do something about their bridges. And also, notable, the bridge effects do stack. So if there's 3 bridges in the graveyard and they just cast Walking Ballista for 0, they get 6 power.
Yep. 3 2/2s.
Seems good.
I will say this deck plays no removal, so it can get brick walled pretty hard. Like, obviously, you might be dead by the time you're casting a Baneslayer Angel, but, like, if you can get a Baneslayer Angel and play against them, they have a really hard time against that card. Similarly, decks that can make, like, a lot of 1/1s tend to be pretty good against this.
Sure.
I was actually testing Hardened Scale's Affinity earlier in the week, and that deck was, like, specifically set up to be very good against this deck, where you had, a bunch of sack outlets for your own creatures so you could get rid of bridges, and you had a bunch of creatures you were happy to chump block with, which really took the wind out of their sails a lot, where it's like, if they're attacking their Vengevine into your Arcbound Worker, it's not generally great for them. So, Lightning Bolt's not great against this deck, but it turns out 1-mana 1/1 chump blockers are.
Yeah, Lingering Souls, baby.
Lingering Souls is good against this deck. I mean, it's more of like a fog, but it is good enough if that's what you're looking for.
Well, if you are following that up with a Siege Rhino or something with trample, like, that would be fine. Not that people are
an X5 blocker that gains you some life. That's probably pretty good against this deck too.
Right. I mean, not that people are, like, tripping over themselves to play Siege Rhino right now, but trample is very good. The other thing that is really good against this deck that is also, like, incidentally good against some other decks is God, what is it called? It's the modern version of Engineered Plague. It's like big illness in the ranks.
Virulent Plague.
Yes. Dragons of Tarkir, 2 and a black. Creature tokens get -2/-2. It is an enchantment. It's 3 mana.
Yeah, I don't think this card is very good against him. I think, like, if you had it in your sideboard, you'd bring it in, but, like, I wouldn't be like, oh, this card's in my sideboard, it's all the hate I need.
No. But I don't think that's really... I don't think you're going to bring in a single card against a deck that can, like, kill you on turn 2.
Well, the problem is all that card does is stop Bridge from Below stuff, where it's like it doesn't really interact with the rest of what their deck is doing.
Yes. See also the problem with Grafdigger's Cage. Like, you're only interacting with 50% of the deck, so
sure,
you need to, like, really kind of plan for other stuff. You need to plan for both.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Next up.
Well, do we want to look at how decks are evolving to kind of compete with this deck? Because that is the type of deck where it is fast enough and powerful enough that it kind of invalidates some decks in the format. And also it makes you, like... It's made some decks kind of switch and mutate their archetype to be better set up against it, I guess.
Give me a for instance.
Well, for instance, I think in the past, 2-3 months ish, the kind of go-to Teferi deck in the format was Jeskai. Jeskai Control is very popular. It was doing a lot of winning, but it also kind of was starting to go on a downswing recently, I guess. And now it's kind of almost disappeared because, like we said earlier, Lightning Bolt is just not very good right now. It's not very good against that deck. There are a lot of other decks where it just is kind of an embarrassing card. And, when Lightning Bolt's not good, you probably don't want to be playing the deck that's also playing Lightning Helix, right? So,
oh boy, yeah, I got some stories about that.
I'm sure you do.
Well, I mean, they're relevant to this discussion, but
lay them on me. What we got?
Oh, I was just in terms of Lightning Bolt being like very lackluster right now. I was testing. Kat was testing Band Spirits, and she was like, "I need somebody to play Burn against," and I was like, "Sure, let me put Burn together." So we played on her stream, and I was playing Burn, and granted, like, I'm not the Burn master, and I get that, like, the deck has a lot of, play lines and intricacies. Like, it's not autopilot. But I mean, I feel like I'm a good enough Magic player that, like, I can play it competently. And I was just getting dumpstered. Like, it was ridiculous. And I mean, I think it is at least partially because, cheap counterspells that also attack you for damage are very good against Burn. Like, I think that the matchup is very lopsided in Spirit's favor, but it really got me thinking about, like, I cannot imagine a scenario under which somebody was like, "Hey, we're going to play in a Modern tournament," and I would be like, "Oh man, I really want to play Burn right now." Like, it just feels so outdated. Like,
It is outdated. Burn hasn't gotten a new relevant card in a while.
Like,
and that's kind of a problem, is like you see these other decks evolving and getting new cards and more powerful cards and updating their strategies. And the Burn decks people are playing today are, within 3 or 4 cards of the Burn decks people were playing 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah. So I don't know. And in the back of my head, like, I felt bad because I was like, man, I wish there was something for this deck, but there just isn't right now.
Burn is the type of deck where it's like, it just needs one card printed and it's right back to, like, top 3 to 5 decks in Modern immediately.
Oh yeah, I mean, if there was a real replacement for, like, Lava Spike, because that card is just bad. Also, Rift Bolt is kind of like, eh.
Yeah, I mean, Burn just needs a few more of these cards to come in. Like, what if Price of Progress got printed in Modern? Burn would just immediately be one of the best decks in the format.
Yes, agreed.
It's like, I mean, those cards probably aren't getting printed into Modern, but you get what I'm saying, where it's like the last time something like this happened, where, like, Eidolon of the Great Oval was printed, Burn went from kind of tier 2 unplayable deck to, one of the best decks in Modern. And it's like, the same thing could happen again.
Yeah.
But anyway,
if they were going to print Price, I think if they printed Anathemancer as a spell instead of a creature, I think it would be perfect.
Like 3 mana?
No. The effect. Instead of, like, because Price is 2 damage per land.
Oh, it's just 1?
And Anathemancer's only 1, but, like, I think 2 mana. Price is instant speed 2, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, like,
I don't think they're going to print that card, and I don't think that they... I don't know.
Like, if they printed slightly worse Price of Progress for Modern as a spell at, like, 2 mana instant speed, I think that would be very playable.
Even at, like, sorcery speed, it'd be fine. But regardless, we're not talking about Burn. We're talking about decks that are actually doing well right now.
Whew, savage. I mean, fair,
well,
but
Burn is played. It's fine, but it's just not. It's not putting up the results that we saw from it in the past, and it's not updating like these other decks are. So
I think they're relying on like the matchup lottery a lot more.
Well, the other problem is like it used to be the fastest deck, and now it's like, well, Vengevine's just gonna embarrass you.
Yes.
Like, you're gonna play Burn, and you're the control deck, but you have no card advantage, and they're like out grinding you, and they're faster than you. Like, why are you playing your deck?
That was one of the saddest things, honestly, is like I was just sitting there and I was like, this deck needs card draw so hard, and there just isn't any.
It shouldn't need card draw. Like, if you are playing Burn, you should be playing in a spot where you don't need card draw. Like, it's kind of the point of the strategy, right? But I don't know. There's just faster ways to burn people out right now, where it's like,
yeah,
you know, you're casting Lava Spike and Boros Charm, and I'm casting Grape Shot for 20 on turn 3. You know.
Yep.
And I'm putting, you know, whatever.
Hashtag
point is,
ban Grape Shot. Anyways,
let's go back to decks that we want to talk about from the Pro Tour here. So, like I was saying about Jeskai earlier, the Lightning Bolts aren't feeling great in the deck. The mana is kind of punishing. Jeskai takes a ton of damage from its mana, and it kind of mitigates that by using Lightning Helix. But again, like, the Bolts aren't good, so it doesn't want to play Lightning Helix. And then it's like, how many red cards is it even playing to begin with? And it just like had like none of its stuff lines up against, you know, Bloodghast and you know, Flamewave Phoenix from Hollow One and Vengevine from the Vengevine decks. Like, they're just all these cards that just make Jeskai's removal look terrible. And the other decks have cards like this too. It's like, you know, like I said, I was testing Hardened Scales Affinity. They have Hangerback Walkers, or Tron has Wormcoil Engines and stuff like that, where you don't want to be killing the creatures. The format has kind of evolved to be better against Jeskai. So,
the format has evolved, and it left Jeskai behind. I think you'd be hard pressed to convince me that people were actually making changes to their deck in sort of deference to some sort of Jeskai, you know, resurgence.
But that's not what they were doing. They were making their deck better against Lightning Bolt because it became the most played removal spell.
Sure.
So now people have made their decks good against the card Lightning Bolt, which is one of the defining features of Jeskai, right?
Sure.
Where it's like this, I'm playing like 7 to 8 Lightning Bolts and Snapcaster Mage so I can have even more Lightning Bolts. And it's like, Mardu Pyromancer was playing a lot of Lightning Bolts. There's all these decks like loading, even Hollow One was playing 4 Lightning Bolts. There's all these decks loaded up on Lightning Bolts, so the format has responded and said, hey, I don't want to play creatures bad against Lightning Bolt. Here's my Bloodghast. Here's my Vengevine. Here's my, you know, Hangerback Walker. Here's X, you know, my 2/4, my Courser Crufix, whatever. Creatures that are good against Lightning Bolt, essentially. So Control Mages at the Pro Tour responded with bringing very few copies of Jeskai, and they showed up with a lot of just straight blue-white control. And you said earlier that, you know, you like Settle the Wreckage, and I agree with you. I think Settle the Wreckage is good right now, but it looks like all of the blue-white players in the format kind of figured out a better sweeper that they are looking for. And that is Terminus. And Terminus is a really frustrating card to play with in the deck. It is alternating between awful and incredible. It is often, I mean, it's almost always the best draw in your deck because it's a miracle when you draw it, right? And routinely the worst card to see in your opening hand. But it has a couple things going for it that is just perfect in this format. One is that it puts cards on the bottom of their owner's library, right? So, you know, you're playing against Vengevine, they put a bunch of Vengevines in play. Boom, you put all the creatures on the bottom of their library. The Bridge from Belows don't trigger, but they still have no board now. So it's perfect against that deck. It's also, it also can be done quick enough against them where you're not dead. So it's like you can Miracle a Terminus on turn 2 and, you know, wipe all the progress they made so quickly and then just kind of take over from there. And 2, it doesn't cost 4 or less. So another deck that's kind of picking up that we're going to talk about is Spirits. And Spirits has this combination of Selfless Spirit, which makes all your creatures indestructible, and Spell Queller, which like exiles cards that cost 4 or less. So Spirits kind of was getting around Supreme Verdict and Wrath of God by, you know, having Selfless Spirit to, you know, make your creatures all indestructible, and then also Spell Queller to counter them. So playing those cards against that deck was just suicide. You just lose. But they can't really do anything about Terminus. And the fact that the deck now has Jace the Mind Sculptor, and it's playing Opt too to kind of set up these terminuses, is enough to make the deck, high tier 1 now. I don't think the deck's perfect, but I think its removal is well positioned against what the format's doing currently. So I think it's kind of the go-to control deck for the time being.
Yes. Like, I like Path. I'm medium on Condemn, but I understand why they're playing it. I think they've done enough to diversify what they're doing compared to like older versions that would have just gotten eaten alive by like a single meddling mage.
Yep.
They have that. Detention Sphere I feel like is really good right now. There's just a lot of those effects that I think we talked about some of them in the last show, like Echoing Truth felt really strong when I was playing it in Delver, because there's a lot of things that are just putting out a lot of the same thing very quickly. So being able to just like Echoing Truth all your zombie tokens that you just spend all this time making, because it's also not, there are resources involved in creating those tokens. So having all of them go away is something, right? Like that's a real thing, because you can't always just make them all again for free.
No, yeah, I mean that's powerful. Also, the card Hollow One is, it's making waves in Modern. It's showing up a ton.
Yep.
And it is the type of card where you expend resources to get multiple copies of the card and play quickly, and then all of a sudden they're back in your hand. They got to reset up, do all of it again. So that's a thing.
Hope to.
Yep.
The counterspells are the counterspells. I mean, I just my problem, quote unquote, with the deck is just that like it's so pokey, and like the win is just like interminable. I mean, it's like I could never play this deck. It would drive me absolutely insane.
Well, it's just because you don't appreciate the Super Friends aspect, my friend.
No, I do. See, that's the thing.
Getting Jace into Fairy in play is just so nice.
Okay, but hear me out. Have you ever had multiple Sorens? In fact, all 3 Sorens, minus Markov, because that doesn't really count. All 3 good Sorens in play at the same time? That's Super Friends. Right? Gideon?
Sure. I think 3 Sorens in play is just Friends. You just are playing a Friends deck.
Dude, Soren Grim Nemesis is freaking ridiculous.
Soren Grim Nemesis is not Elspeth's Son's champion, though.
No, it's not.
It's the same color requirement, and you could just be playing Elspeth. Elspeth is so good.
All right, let me paint you a picture here.
Dude, I love Soren. I'm a big fan of Soren. I tried to play this card a ton in Standard, but Soren is a Standard Planeswalker. Elspeth is a card powerful enough for Modern. That card is messed up, man.
Sure, I mean it's a one, it's an army in a box. It's basically just auto win. But
look, I love Soren, but all right. So I was testing Blue White Control this week, and
okay.
let me paint this picture for you, right?
Sure.
I had played so I'm at 3 life, right? I have 6. I'm playing as humans.
Being at 3 life sounds about right for this deck.
Yep, I'm at 3 life. I'm playing as humans. I have a Celestial Colonnade and 6 lands. My opponent has a couple creatures in play, but I've dealt with a decent amount of them. But one of his creatures is Camball, right? So I am at 3 life, which means if I don't have an answer to Camball in my hand right now. So if I don't play a spell this turn, I'm going to lose, and I don't have an answer to Cannonball, so I only get one more spell for the rest of the game. Essentially.
Yep.
Unless he somehow trades it off in combat, whatever. I do have an Elspeth in my hand, though. So I play this Elspeth, I go to 1, my human's opponent is at like 20, and I just have a colony to block flyers. I ended up winning that game on the back of Elspeth. Where it's just like, the deck couldn't beat Elspeth. Like, I didn't cast another spell the rest of the game, and Elspeth just won.
Card's real good.
Like,
I mean...
Elspeth will do that. The card is just ridiculous. It just
when your plus makes 3 1/1s, like.
But that's my point. Is like if you're gonna play a Super Friends deck, you need to play the best Super Friends, and it's like there's really only 2 ways you can do that in Modern right now, right? Where it's like you can have blue and white mana in your deck, and you can play Jace, Teferi, Elspeth, or you can have a bunch of colorless mana in your deck, and you can play Karn and Ugin. Like those are your options for Super Friends.
I don't know. Like I said. 3 mana Gideon, 4 mana Gideon, Liliana the Veil, Liliana the Last Hope. I
will give a shout out to Liliana the Veil and Liliana the Last Hope, but I think Liliana the Veil is particularly bad right now.
I would be like if I will not be bringing 8-rack to any events the next little while.
Like, you're playing against BridgeVine. Like, Liliana the Veil looks so bad when they're, like, discarding Bridge from below and BridgeVine into your Liliana pluses, you know?
Oh, yeah, no, trust me. I know. I remember what it was like playing 8-rack when Dredge came back.
Yep.
It's awful. It is akin to the feel-bads of playing Legacy Pox against Black Red Reanimator, which I've also done, and it's miserable.
I believe that. Okay, but anyway, let's finish up on blue-white so we can get to some other decks people are interested in.
Sure.
So, Mattia Rizzi at the Pro Tour did something I think is particularly brilliant with this deck. And that is he killed his darling to steal a line from Patrick Chapin there. I think ever since Search for Azcanta got printed in Ixalan, every blue deck in the format played Search for Azcanta. And they all did it with Teferi at this point, where it's just like kind of a recognized thing. It's like, oh, you're a blue control deck. Oh, you're gonna play Search for Azcanta. You're gonna play Teferi. You're gonna tap your search, draw a card, plus your Teferi, untap your search, draw another card, create this infinite value or whatever that the deck tries to do, and that is good at burying people. It certainly is. Like that is a tried and true recipe to win long games in the format. But Mattia Rizzi was one of the better finishing blue-white control players in the event. I think their team finished in like the top 8. They played a win-in for top 4, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And he was playing no Search for Azcanta. And I think in this deck, it's particularly brilliant. Because if you are playing the mirror, all of these blue-white decks, one of the big draws to playing blue-white is that you get Field of Ruin. And in fact, some of the decks are even playing Ghost Quarter on top of Field of Ruin. So they have Field of Ruins, they have Ghost Quarters. You'll even see Crucible Worlds in the sideboard, effects like that. And it's like, yeah, you can flip your search, but it might draw a card and then get Field of Ruin every time. And kind of has the same thing going with on a different part of this deck, the deck is also not very good at filling its graveyard, where it's playing Logic Knot. It doesn't have as many 1-mana spells as Jeskai. It doesn't have as many fetch lands as a lot of other decks in the format. So it takes forever to flip Search in this deck. So I think he correctly identified that Search wasn't good in the mirrors, where it was, like before, it was like one of the best cards in Jeskai mirrors. And here, in these mirrors, it's not actually very impactful. It's not good against other decks trying to go long like Tron, because they can just Stone Raid it. And it's just too slow in this deck against other decks. So he is playing 4 Ancestral Vision instead. And Ancestral Vision ends up being great in the mirror. It's great against Tron because they can't really interact with it, and by the time they start getting their engines online, it's drawing you a bunch of cards. And Ancestral Vision, it isn't as good of a card advantage engine as Search for Azcanta in the blind. It's a little slower and a little less value, but it's harder to interact with, and it's going to bury them just as well. I mean, when your Ancestral Vision is drawing you another Ancestral Vision and a Teferi, they're going to get buried, and it just puts your opponent in bad spots in mirrors, essentially, where it's like, I promise you the deck with Ancestral Vision as their card advantage source, and the blue-white mirror is going to be advantaged over the one playing Search for Azcanta. So I think that's the way to go if you're looking to play control right now. And in fact, I'm going to play a PPTQ this weekend. I'm going to sleeve up Reese's list.
I do not have enough experience with this archetype to make a quality point about it, other than it's playing 2 Rest in Peace and 2 Stony Silence on the sideboard, and a Baneslayer Angel and a Lyra Dawnbringer also in the sideboard, which all seem great.
Well, that's another like big draw to play this deck. Actually, is Rest in Peace, and that's a card you'll see Jeskai decks avoid a lot of the time because they're just like loaded up on Snapcaster Mages and Logic Knots and Search for Azcantas. And it's like right now you really want Rest in Peace because it's just so good in the format. And here, like, it's not playing Search for Azcanta. It only has 2 Snapcaster Mages. He's playing 1 Logic Knot. I mean, he has 3 cards in his deck that care about the graveyard at all, and it's like, you know, if you're boarding in your Rest in Peace, it's not that hard to board out your Snapcaster Mages, and then your deck just doesn't care about the graveyard, and you can turn off graveyards, greatly hurt your opponent, and cost yourself nothing almost.
Right. And I mean, Logic Knot, if you fire it off early, I mean, Logic Knot for 1 is still fine.
Well, the other thing is, like, Logic Knot, you can just cast. Like, I mean, obviously, like, it's not what you want to be doing, but, like, the fail case of just spend 4 mana, I have a, what is it, Rune Snag?
Rune Snag.
My 4 mana Rune Snag or whatever. Like, it's not great, but it's something you do for sure.
Oh, hey, you know what? I've been hard casting Disrupting Shoals. It's fine.
Okay.
You know, I don't
no, that's fine.
I mean, I don't love it.
I mean, it's not plan A, but it gets the job done, right?
It's the secret mode. The hidden mode is you can actually just cast the spell.
Oh, that's Legacy, dude. That is the best feeling of Legacy when you just like hard cast your force and you're like, ah.
That's
start it.
bleh. Bleh.
All right.
All right.
Let's
So
get
if
off
you want
the
to play
blue cards,
control, apparently play blue-white control.
I think it's a place to be.
It's our takeaway
at this time. Yep.
Humans getting human. So, Militia Bugler, much to the chagrin of one Cedric Phillips, is seeing quite a bit of play in the high-performing humans decks.
Yep. I mean, Bugler's everywhere. There's not too many innovations to the actual humans deck outside of Bugler to this point. I mean, you'll see, you know, some slight changes to the sideboard, some slight changes to the main deck, but essentially the list is kind of ironed out now. And, you know, you can massage numbers here and there. It's like some lists play 3 Bugler and 4 Reflector Mage. Some lists play 4 Bugler and 3 Reflector Mage. It's just kind of how you're feeling about the deck, your play style, but the list is there. You can massage the numbers a little bit. And the sideboard now, we're starting to see the same cards in all of the sideboards, and it's just kind of like, you know, pick the cards you want for that weekend. We're out of like the same, I don't know, they play like 15 cards or something where they, you know, they might register 8 of them on a given week or whatever. So
yeah,
humans isn't changing, but I think at this point it's safe to say it's not Bugler humans anymore. It just is humans, and Bugler's in the deck.
Yes. Yeah, if it was me, if I was so inclined, I would probably play the 4th Bugler before I played the 4th Reflector Mage. Especially against a field of like, you know, like Reflector Mage or Vengevine is like Sad Panda Town.
I mean, that's not great, but I think that might be a reason why he played the 4th Reflector Mage is that matchup where it's like Bugler's good there, but like you really are hard pressed to kind of get stuff on the board, you know?
Well, I mean, you can Phantasmal Image there, you know, like I'd rather have a Phantasmal Image than a Reflector Mage.
Well, sure, but
they don't play any removal spells. Like you get a free, or not free, but you know, you get a 2 mana whatever their best creature is, and then they have no way to kill it outside of combat.
Yeah, no, I mean that's fair, but like I'm saying like at this point it's like you might want 4th Reflector Mage over 4th Bugler just because against Vengevine you just kind of need to just buy yourself some time to kind of get your critical mass thing going, and that's a really small point. But that might have been why he went for Reflector Mages. Like I just need to play to the board where like, you know, they're both kind of a 2/3 and they both, you know, they're just 2/3. So
yeah, and this is Branko Niernik.
Yep.
And clearly a listener, probably not, but
Could be.
playing our tech, one of Riders of Gavany in the sideboard.
Yes, sir. Gotta win those humans mirrors somehow.
The rest of the side, Auriok Champion has been popping up a lot lately. I will say that I hadn't seen hide nor hair of an Auriok Champion in quite a while, and then started popping up again, which is great because I love that card. I am a huge fan of Auriok Champion. So grab some Auriok Champions because Pro Black, real good right now.
Well, I think the reason they played it was Mardu Pyromancer. It's
Sure.
so good against Mardu Pyromancer.
Great against them.
Yeah, I mean that. From the Mardu side, it's like, what are you supposed to do about this? You have one card in your deck that's relevant against it, which is Lingering Souls, and Lingering Souls normally would be very good against this card because you just trade, a soul with it. Except they have all these, Thalia's Lieutenants and Phantasmal Images to copy Thalia's Lieutenant, and Auriok Champion becomes like a 4/4, and now it's like I can't block it with anything. Like, what do I do, right?
You get wrecked, pretty much.
Yeah, you lose. I mean, that's what happens. Is you lose.
The only, is it Staticaster? I don't know. It's the fact that the zombie tokens are 2/2s is really like something that I think people are going to have to find a good way to deal with.
Oh, I got it. I figured out the way.
Oh boy.
You go Staticaster, and then you go Phantasmal Image, copy Staticaster. Boom. Get them.
Okay. What you're saying is not an unreasonable line of play. Like, I don't want to give you that impression, but I don't know if it would be my first choice.
No, it's probably not. But that, like, it plays Staticaster because that's just the human that pings, right? Like, that's just what they have. Like, if they had one that did 2 that cost 4 or something, they'd probably play it. But they don't, so they're playing what they got, and, that's what they have, so...
Yep. To the surprise of no one, Matt Nass played Ironworks at the Pro Tour, and the main deck, as far as I can tell, is pretty much unchanged. The big change is in the sideboard. So this is a card that during our M19 set review, I poo-pooed when you brought it up. And here it is. Psy Master Thopterist.
Yeah, I mean, the card just has... Like, it doesn't have a limit on it. It just says when you cast an artifact, you get a thing, which is another artifact, which, if you look at the history of artifacts, they tend to be critical mass strategies, where it's like, one artifact really wants a second artifact, Mox Opal... In fact, there's a whole keyword, Metalcraft, that says, like, I want as many... I want 3 artifacts, so it's like... it just is really good with other artifacts, essentially, and in this deck, they can cast a lot of spells and make a lot of artifacts, make a ton of 1/1 flyers. I think part of why they play it is it's a good win con online. It's just a quick way to kill people with combat.
Right.
But also, it's really effective at chump blocking and just kind of setting up a wall to, like, buy yourself some time against these, post-board plans where people are bringing in, a bunch of Ancient Grudges in these BridgeVine decks against you. So it's like, yeah, it might be hard for you to combo off when they're just, like, Ancient Grudging all of your stuff, but, you put a bunch of 1/1s in play, and you're buying yourself time to kind of just draw into your critical mass to kind of get them. And also, it's just really annoying for control, where it's like, post-board, how much removal are you leaving in against this deck? Like, you need some amount of it, but removal isn't typically great, and then you don't remove Psy, and all of a sudden they have 20 power of 1/1 flyers in play.
Yeah, so you do... now we're right back to is it Staticaster.
Yep. Well, and then the other thing that's nice about Psy is, people kind of realize pretty quickly against KCI, Relic, Progenitus, Tormod's Crypt, Grafdigger's Cage, those don't work. They don't shut down all the draw triggers on the eggs, if you will, in the deck. But Leyline of the Void and Rest in Peace are very good against it, where it's like, you have a Leyline of the Void in play, now all of a sudden they're Chromatic Stars don't draw a card. The Terrarians don't draw a card. Ichor Wellspring, when it goes to the graveyard, doesn't draw a card. All of these things. And so you're seeing a ton of Leyline of the Void pop up. You're seeing a ton of decks move to Rest in Peace because that's, the graveyard hate you want right now. And Sai lets this deck turn, those cards that would be worthless into new cards with its pay 2 sacrifice ability. So it just has enough going for it that the deck is interested in it. I don't know that it's going to continue 100% being the way to go, but I think for right now we're looking at Teamer Ironworks instead of just green-red.
All right.
And also the deck gets Negate, which is just a generically powerful card in these decks. Where it's just like, it's always the answer to their answer,
Yeah. Well, and it also, we're still on 4 Nature's Claim. Like, that's a
Yep.
real thing. And
Well,
4 Lightning Bolts on the side, like, that's also a real thing.
yeah. No, it's got good answers, but just like, Negate's so good because it's just like, there aren't very many creature answers to Ironworks. There's just not, like, any creatures that you think are that good. Like, the cards that are great against the deck are, Stony Silence and Leyline of the Void and Rest in Peace, all these things. And then other counter, like Ceremonious Rejection, these things. So it's like, Negate answers kind of all of those, except it's not great against Leyline of the Void, but, like, it could be good against the hardcast Leyline of the Void. You never know. But, it serves the double duty of helping you resolve your Krark clan through a Cryptic Command or whatever.
Sure. Yep. Negate is good. Alright. What's next? Oh, Bant Spirits. Speaking of Bant Spirits. Here's what I learned. Talking to Kat, playing against her. Do not leave in Geist of Saint Draft in linear creature aggro matchups. That's the wisdom. Just don't do it. Take it out. Apparently she was like yelling at the screen because people kept leaving it in. Or like leaving it in and I believe boarding it in. So
you want like if you're playing Geist in your Bant Spirits deck at all, which some of the players do not do, but if you are playing it, you probably want it against decks like Jeskai and Blue White, where it's hard for them to answer and it just does them so much damage so quick. And it's like, against these other decks that clog up the ground, it's horrible because all your other creatures have evasion, so it's the only thing they can block, and they're definitely blocking your Geist. They're not going to not block it,
Right.
And you also aren't good at clearing a path. Like, I used to play a lot of Jeskai Geist, and that deck was awesome at clearing a path for it. They'd have like 3 blockers, like Bolt 1, Helix 1, Path 1, attack, or Cryptic, tap your team, attack with Geist, 6 of you,
Yeah.
This deck, like, it has 4 Path Exiles, and that's it. That's all it has. So it's, it kind of has to be more choosy with its removal. It can't really clear path for Geist. It can't give it flying. It's just not a good Geist deck.
Agreed. So this list, Yvonne Flock played it. 1 Birds, 4 Nobles, 4 Mausoleum Wanderer, Phantasmal Image, 4 Rattle Chains, 3 Selfless Spirit, 4 Supreme Phantom, Drag Skull Captain, Geist, 4 Spell Quellers, and then Path Company, and 22 lands.
Yeah, so I think the big thing with Spirits, there's nothing like earth-shattering about Spirits right now. It's kind of this established list we're seeing, but there is something interesting going on in the fact that there's Bant Spirits right now and there's Blue-White Spirits right now, and it's not clear which one's better. I will say Bant Spirits was a lot more played at the Pro Tour, so people tend to think Bant Spirits is better, and I've heard arguments advanced from multiple Spirits players on both sides, but some players I really respect seem to think that Bant is better because it's better in the mirrors where it has Collected Company to kind of generate card advantage and Noble Hierarch to get mana advantage, whereas Blue-White, the only mana advantage it gets is through Aether Vial, which is good, but when you also don't have Noble Hierarch, like you're giving up Noble Hierarch to get Aether Vial, you're not really generating that much more mana advantage. So
yeah, I honestly I can't see playing this deck without Collected Company.
Well, Well, I think there are reasons, and we'll talk about them, when we get to it. But I think what you're about to, and please continue. But I think what you're about to say is very valid.
Because that's the whole draw of the deck is being able to be disruptive, be aggressive, and do all of that stuff at instant speed. Like, the deck is very good at operating on the stack. So to give some of that up in the sense that, like, you can only violin one creature.
Sure.
And, company obviously is going to whiff a certain amount of time, but you have 30 creatures in your deck, and all of them except for Noble Hierarch and Birds of Paradise, which you've presumably played at least 1 to 2 of by the time you're casting Collected Company. Everything that you can hit is a banger. Like, there are no bad hits outside of Noble Hierarch and Birds of Paradise.
Sure.
So I can't see an argument that isn't already covered by something else. Like, it can't be countered. Like, that's fine. Just play Cavern of Souls.
Well, the deck has a hard time playing Cavern of Souls because it's tough on the mana. The Bant version, which is one of the reasons to play blue-white, is that you get a better mana base. Where the Bant version's mana base is kind of painful. It has a lot less utility lands. It doesn't get to play nice cards like man lands and Field of Ruins, where it's like Mutavault is really good in this list, but it can't really afford to play it. But like, Mutavault is great in lists that can make Mutavault into a 1-mana 4/4. And yeah, like, it gets Moorland Haunt, which is a great card, but blue-white gets to play more Moorland Haunts because its mana is easier.
Sure.
So, like, I think you are right about what you said about green, but I think it's kind of to the point where it's like, if you're a Spirits player, you should kind of start experimenting with both. And I could definitely see metagames where one's better than the other, right? Where it's like,
Sure.
and it's kind of like your job to determine, where you want it at this time, right?
Yes. Hold on 1 second.
But yeah, so that was kind of the point I wanted to get to with Spirits, is that there's kind of two lists evolving right now, and they're kind of going in different ways, and we are really seeing it kind of come down to there's just 2 creature decks in Modern right now. There's humans and there's spirits, and they're both tribal decks, and they both have their merits. And it kind of, to me, comes down to Sin Collector, Freebooter, Meddling Mage package versus the Spell Queller package, if you will. So, like, if you were a tribal swarm type player, like if that's the type of strategy you gravitate towards, then I would strongly suggest putting all of these in your arsenal and just kind of figuring out when one is good this week and whatnot. But anyway, Blue-White Spirits is kind of new, so let's kind of give them a breakdown of what's actually going on in this deck and why people are moving away from Bant.
Okay, so this was played by Jun Hao Tae. It is 4 Mausoleum Wanderers, 3 Phantasmal Image, 4 Rattle Chains, 2 Remorseful Cleric, 3 Selfless Spirit, 4 Supreme Phantom, 2 Thalia, 1 Drog Skull Captain, 1 Kira, 4 Spell Quellers, and then Path, Aether Vial, and 21 lands, including 3 Mutavaults and 3 Mutavaults.
Yeah, I mean, it gets the Mutavaults as the man land. It still gets to play Horizon Canopy, which Bant played. It doesn't take advantage of Horizon Canopy as well, but you can afford to play cards like Moorland Haunt in this list if you want. You can afford to play Celestial Colonnade if that's something you're looking for. Celestial Colonnade also goes kind of well with Spirits in the sense that it's just another flyer.
Right. So the things that immediately stick out to me about this list are Remorseful Cleric in the main. So it's an aggressive body already. 2/1. It's a 2/1 flyer for 2. it is a spirit. So like with Drug Skull Captain, with Supreme Phantom, like those are stats that I'm interested in. The thing of it is it has a sack ability, exile all cards from target player's graveyard, which seems amazing right now.
Yeah, that can be huge against some decks. It's like against Storm, they cast their Past in Flames. Whoops, nope, none of that. KCI thinks they kind of have their loop going, and, it's not going to beat KCI by itself, but it's certainly something they have to play around and respect.
Well, you can drop this before they go off. That's the thing, right? And so you just like wipe out whatever they have, and that buys you a little bit of time.
A well-timed Remorseful Cleric against KCI could buy you a turn for sure, which could be all you need.
And then you're also playing Thalia.
It's not always going to beat them. They can certainly play through it, but go for it.
Thalia, I think, is a real thing. So obviously you can't play Thalia and Collected Company together because...
Well, you can. It's just not good.
You can't. Sure. You have the ability to register them together, but
yeah, like I've actually done this in like I played Green White Hate Bears. I was like, oh, I'm gonna make Hate Bears better. I'm gonna put Collected Company in it, and it played both of those cards. And it's a huge nombo. Like there are times where it feels really bad and it costs you games. Like that just happens. So
yeah. So I think those are interesting things.
Well, so one other thing about blue-white that I think people mistake between like looking at that and Bant is that this is a better instant speed deck than Bant. Whereas, yes, Bant gets value at instant speed and Collected Company, but Vial kind of gives all of your creatures flash, and Rattle Chains gives all of your spirits flash. So you like kind of get to this point where it's like you get to play almost 100% on your opponent's turn, whereas Bant sometimes gets to play on its opponent's turn, but sometimes just has to play in its own main phase. So it's going to react better than Bant will, I guess, in that sense. And its curve kind of gets to be a little tighter because it's found a way to get more 2-drops into the deck. It's not so much 1 to 3 like Bant is.
It's just all 2s. That's pretty much like, other than Darkskull Captain, Cure, and Spellcaller, everything in the deck is a 2. Yep. And then Mausoleum Wanderer 1. I feel like you're gonna have to mulligan more because you do need, like, it's still an aggressive deck. Like, you need to have something to do on turn 1.
I think you mulligan less because your mana's better. Like Bant, you're gonna have hands where you're just like, I can't, like, I have these cards and I can't cast them, or I have like 2 Cocos and like a land or 2 lands. Like I'm not gonna get there. Like this, you might have like the 1 land Aether Vial and be like, oh, that's great. But it's like 1 land Noble Hierarch is like pretty sketchy against any deck that could kill your Noble Hierarch,
Sure. I don't know. I can't. If the criteria for your keep is have Aether Vial or Mausoleum Wanderer in your opening hand, I think you're going to end up mulliganing a lot more hands than you would in Bant because you have more early plays.
Sure. I could buy that. I could buy that for sure.
So also, like, notable, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Stony Silence in the sideboard. And a spicy, very nice one of in the sideboard in Nico Ona, which is a...
You have to read this one.
This
knows what this card does.
this is definitely a reader. So this is a... Is that a common? I can't read. I can't see the thing.
Uncommon.
Anyways, so Saviors of Kamigawa is 2 and a white for a spirit. Kamigawa Black was very good for spirits. Had a lot of them, some of which are probably underplayed.
No, not really. It was really bad. There are some spirits in it, but yeah, the set's as bad as people thought it was.
Well, no, is that Kami of the Ancient Law? Wasn't that was played at some point? Anyways, so this one, Nico Ona, is 2 and a white, ETB, destroy target enchantment, and whenever you play Spirit or Arcane spell, you may return Nico Ona to its owner's hand. So you can kind of get the you get the juke, right? You throw it out there, and then you cast a Mausoleum Wanderer, bounce it back to your hand, vial it in, you get the double, and like it's a 2/2. It doesn't fly, weirdly, but there it is.
No, but I mean, it's the exact, like, Bant Spirits, I believe, has a very hard time against Boggles, but this actually gives you game against it, where it's like, yeah, you're probably not going to beat Boggles with the deck, but like if you draw your Nico Ono, you're going to smash Boggles, right? Or presumably. You might still lose, but you never know.
Yeah. All right, why can I not find Kami? Oh, it's Kami of Ancient Law. Yeah, this is... Yeah, I mean, I guess you get to recycle it. The Kami of Ancient Law is a 2-mana 2/2 that you sack to destroy an enchantment.
Yeah, Nico Ono is like way better. You have to keep doing it.
Yeah, you get to keep doing it, but it also doesn't blow up your opponent's bridge from belows. Just saying.
Sure, but you have Remorseful Cleric for that.
Sure. Well, in that particular one. I mean, like in Banned Spirits, I mean, who knows?
Well, you don't even care, like, you don't care that much about Bridge from Below in Spirits.
No, I mean, like,
you're
against
fly
something
over
like
them.
Boggles, yeah. Speaking of things that fly, oh, baby.
Yeah, so this deck did not show up at the Pro Tour at all. I think there's actual 0 copies registered, but it's very new and,
yes.
Worth touching on. So, what do we got here, Aaron?
Definitely a deck on the rise. So, Blue-Red Wizards, Jeff Hoogland played this at the SCG Modern Open in Indianapolis. He got 6th place. He went 13-0 in the Swiss, and then lost in the quarters, which is unfortunately on brand for him. I'm not. I guess that's like historically a thing that happens to him a lot. I don't know. He talked about it. Anyways, so Delver already in. 2 Grim Lavamancers, 4 Snapcasters, 1 Spellstutter Sprite, 4 Nimble Obstructionist, 4 Nimble Obstructionist, 4, the full boat, 4 Stifle Birds, 2 Vendilion Click, 2 Burst Lightning, my least favorite card, 4 Lightning Bolts in, 4 Opt in, 1 Spell Snare, it is what it is, 3 Mana Leak, 3 Remand, 4 Wizard's Lightning, 10 Bolt. That is this deck. 10 Lightning Bolts, basically, and 4 Snapcaster Mages. So, kind of, like I said, I don't really count Burst Lightning, but there's no reason to play Tarfire in this deck, so... And there's only 8 Lightning Bolts. So, Wizard's Lightning is basically always turned on. It is turned on with Snapcaster Mage, so when you snap it back, you get, like, a free discount with the Snapcaster Mage. Everything in this deck is a wizard. Everything that's a creature is a wizard. So, appropriately, Blue-Red Wizards. Land, very, very fine. 22 lands, Wandering Fumarole. A number of his on-camera matches involved Wandering Fumarole. Also a reader. It's the blue-red creature land from Oath. It's a 1/4 that you can switch to being a 4/1 at instant speed for 0 mana. And also plays 4 Mutavaults. So Mutavault also a wizard.
Yep, counts as a wizard. It's a big
Counts
deal.
as a wizard.
Also counts as a fairy, which is also a big deal in this deck.
Yes, the one of Spellstutter Sprite is like a nice gotcha. It does also work with Vendilion Click. Like Click is a fairy.
Yep.
And also the Mutavault. So, like, I think it's in there because it sort of checks all the boxes. Like, it's a wizard. It flies. It has flash.
It's a wizard, Harry.
It's a wizard. And it enables the stuff. Sideboard, fairly straightforward. Entrancing Melody seems to be the new Three mana fairy that I can't think of right now.
4 mana?
No, not Sower of Temptation. The one that was CMC 2 or less.
Is there a 3 mana fairy that does that? Or are you thinking of Threads of Disloyalty?
Oh, Threads. That's what I'm thinking of. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. So, Entrancing Melody seems to be the new Threads. I actually did register. I played a deck online that had Sower of Temptation on the side, and I actually liked it. I know it doesn't see a lot of play anymore, but it's a neat card. It's a strong effect.
I mean, it is strong. I think the card's good. The reason this deck is playing Entrancing Melody is twofold. Like I said, I played a bunch of Blue Moon kind of the last 2 months-ish. And that's a deck that also plays Entrancing Melody at times. And it's because blue-red decks are historically awful against Death Shadow and Tasigur and Gurmagangler and Tarmogoyf especially. Really bad against Tarmogoyf. And you need kind of an effect to get those big bodies out of the way. So, like, what better way than control magicking them?
Sure.
Obviously, you're not... Entrancing Melody is particularly bad against Gurmagangler and Tasigur, but it's very good against Death Shadow and Tarmogoyf. And the fact that you play Snapcaster Mage and it lets you kind of get that effect twice is really nice. Whereas, like Sword of Temptation is good, but the decks that play Shadow and play Tarmogoyf typically also play, Lightning Bolt and Fatal Push. Like, they have ways to kill your Sower, whereas this is going to get to steal 2 of their creatures, no questions asked.
Yep. Nope, agreed. Like I said, that the deck is really strong. It's cool. Like, that's style points plus just, like my experience of playing Wizards Lightning has been overwhelmingly positive. I just really like it. Like, it is Lightning Bolt 4 through 8. And
that card's great. The card, like, just, if you're playing Wizards, that card is awesome. Like, Lightning Bolt's good. That card, like, Wizards Lightning in a Wizards deck is also extremely good.
Yes.
I've been very impressed with this deck, actually. Fun little story. I got smashed by this deck yesterday at my local FNM, my Tuesday
Oh, really?
FNMs. Oh, yeah. I was playing Blue-White Control, and true to your previous comments, it was slow and dirtily, and I was playing against a Blue-Red Wizards player who got under me. Actually got me with a Fever Visions. Slammed a Fever Visions on me, and yeah, I didn't get out from under that one. He just made me draw a bunch of cards. I took a bunch of damage. He drew a bunch of cards. They were all Lightning Bolts, and I cast Timely Reinforcements. I played a Baneslayer Angel. None of these things mattered at all, and I just lost.
Yep. Yeah, and the deck, like, outside of Snaps and Scalding Tarns, is very inexpensive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think I would register it without those cards. I think those cards are very important in this deck. But
no, I do too. Honestly, like, the Scalding Tarns less so, because the deck only plays 5 fetch lands. So
yeah, I mean, you could get away without Tarn. Like, if you wanted to play Flooded Strand, like, if you had the rest of this deck and you just didn't have Tarns, and you wanted to play, like, Flooded Strand or Polluted Delta or one of those, I think you could definitely do that. I think that's fine.
I mean, the 4 Snapcasters obviously is like pretty much non-negotiable, but the entire rest of the deck costs as much as 4 Snapcasters.
Yeah, I mean, I would never play this deck without Snapcaster Mage. That is the reason to play Wizards in Modern, is that you get Snapcaster Mage, right?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, Scalding Tarn is specifically one of the fetches where it's like, well, like, the reason you want it is to fetch Mountain, and you don't usually need to fetch Mountain to play around Blood Moon, so, that whole aspect of playing your fetch lane to, mitigate Blood Moon is a lot less important. That said, it's like not having Scalding Tarn is going to make you a lot worse against Burn, which is something that this deck is going to struggle with, so that's tough, but again, like, if it's a money consideration, you can definitely get away with Polluted Delta and Flooded Strand, like, if you already had those.
Yeah, man, the only duel that you're gonna fetch is Steam Vents, because it's the only fetchable duel in the deck. So if you just
also the red is not particularly intense in this deck.
If you just play 5 blue fetches, it's fine. Pick any 5 blue fetches, and that's fine.
Sure.
I'm ready to make that statement.
All right, let's move on. What do we got for brews?
So the Delver work continues. Bedlam Reveler is great. I was running into an issue where I was getting like brickwalled a lot by like unimpressive stuff. So I thought about it and I was like, man, you know what this deck really needs? 2 Rancors. And that card is great. I'm just really into it. Like, I wish it gave +3/+0, but I know that's too much. But the +2 is great. It really fixes the Tarmogoyf problem of like you just get brickballed by like Lingering Souls type stuff.
Sure.
And 5 in the air, you know, throw a Rancor on a Flip Delver or a Nimble Obstructionist, close the game out super fast. I have cut a couple of the cantrips. I'm still like trying to massage it. I think the thing that we came to today on the Discord is I think it's time to go to 17 lands. So that's that. Shout out to Arilax who gave me some good feedback about the mana base and a couple of ideas to try for the deck. We gave up on Scythe Tiger despite how much I love it and despite the fact that it is conditionally very good. But I swapped it out for another card that I really like, which is Narnum Renegade, because Narnum Renegade 2 power is fine for 1 mana. Like you get the +1/+1 counter for just playing it off of a fetch land, which is totally fine. Death Touch is super relevant because he will always trade up, and it's just a good card. You know, like I forget how great Death Touch is until I'm like, yes, please attack me with your non-trampling Gurmag Angler while I'm beating you down with my trampling Tarmogoyf.
Well, and also, like, Death Touch and Teamer is great because your deck has trouble against big toughness creatures, right?
Oh, it sure does, man.
I mean, like, your opponent puts a Death Shadow in play, and it's like a 6/6, and, I mean, what do you do? Well, you block it with your Death Touch creature, yeah.
So that fixed that, because obviously the problem with Scythe Tiger is you can't put Rancor on it because it has Shroud. So that was it turned out to be enough of a detriment. Like, not being able to buff it was enough of a detriment that I was finally had to just put it to bed. And someday Scythe Tiger, I will find a home for you, just like BridgeVine found a home. Mark my words, someday Scythe Tiger will also find a home.
Sure.
That's really the big stuff. Rancor was a huge development. I am also I'm testing a bug version, and I will say that Fatal Push is a hell of a Magic card. It was a breath of fresh air to get Fatal Push instead of Lightning Bolt. So I don't know. Maybe that version ends up being the one that I play the most, but who knows? I still really like the Teamer version. Like Bedlam Reveler's an insane card. I've had multiple matches where I will play my Bedlam Reveler, draw 3 cards, play those 3 cards, top deck another Bedlam Reveler, or like Serum Visions, scry into another Bedlam Reveler and then cast that. And you see so much more of your deck than your opponent, and even if it's you see it as it's getting milled into the graveyard, like, it doesn't matter because they still function in the graveyard. So, but the deck is still a blast. I'm going to try it extensively with 17 lands and see if I can just get it a little bit super dialed in. But like I said, the bug version is also great. I had during our little setup, you saw what may be my sickest play of all time. I was playing against Blue Black Tron, which I guess is just like Blue Tron with Diabolic Revelation and Beseech the Queen, I guess. Okay. I don't know.
Sounds bad, but sure.
I mean, here's the thing. They played Urza's Power Plant and then River of Tears. And I was like, all right, we're taking a ride.
Sure.
Like, let's play some Magic. So game 2, so I beat them game 1, just like fast Tarmogoyfs, bang, 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 like five power Tarmogoyfs. Also the bug version plays a one of Traverse the Ulvenwald.
Sure.
It's great.
Yeah, that card is very good.
So I beat him down with Tarmogoyfs game 1. Game 2, I had a Flip Delver and a Nimble Obstructionist with a Rancor on it in play. Opponents at 1 life. They have 5 mana up and a Oblivion Stone. They crack the Oblivion Stone. I Vapor Snagged my own Nimble Obstructionist so I could cycle it to counter the Oblivion Stone activation, get the Delver in for the kill.
That's what's up. Yep, that's a sick play.
I was like, yep, this is happening. So yeah, also Vapor Snag, great. Vapor Snag is such a good card. I've been thinking about burn a lot, like I said earlier. I don't know what the solution is yet, but
I have a solution for you with burn.
Is it Ensnaring Bridge? Because in my head it's Ensnaring Bridge.
Oh no, it was like you're gonna have to go around your house for a second.
Ruh-roh.
And you're gonna find a shelf. And you're gonna take your burn deck and you're gonna put it there. And then when Wizards of the Coast prints you a new awesome burn card, we're gonna go pick it up then. We're gonna put that card in and we're gonna start playing it again.
Okay.
Now I think burn is good, but it's just like I said before, it's just suffering from not getting a new card in a while. And it just hasn't updated and it's kinda getting outdated, and as soon as it gets a new card, it'll be good again. But for right now, I'd probably hold off on it.
Fair. Yeah, not everything can be good all the time.
Yep.
So tell me about your experience with Hardened Scales Affinity, because I have seen the deck. I think it's neat. It seems powerful. I have not played it.
Sure. So I've been testing a lot of serious blue decks. I've been blue mooning. I've been Jeskaiing. I've been blue-white controlling. I've been doing all these things, and I kind of just did a Twitter thing earlier. I don't think it was late last week or early this week or something, or late 2 weeks ago or early last week, whatever. It was just like, hey, I want to play a for fun deck at a PPT this weekend. I'm going to put some time in on a deck I haven't played and think might be interesting. So put the call out. Twitter voted. They told me I should try out Hardened Scales Affinity. I think the options were like Hardened Scales Affinity, Fairies, Blue-Black Fairies. I don't remember. Something else got suggested I thought was pretty sweet, but didn't get very many votes. BridgeVine, maybe? I don't know. Doesn't matter. The point is they voted for Hardened Scales Affinity. So I spent the week testing Hardened Scales Affinity. I have a decent amount of experience with normal Affinity. I've played it at some events, but obviously I'd never played Hardened Scales. So ordered some Hardened Scales, ordered some Throne of Geths.
Yeah.
Basically played a list I got from... I think it was a Matt Nass stream or online or something. But found this list, started testing it, and The deck is interesting. It's actually been putting up a lot of results online recently, but it is kind of confusing to kind of tell what's going on with it and what it wants to do, I guess. So, essentially, it's just a normal affinity deck where it's playing a lot of cards affinity would play. And, Opal, Ravager, I guess. Those are mostly the cards. Steel Overseer. But then it has a bunch of counter cards, like Arcbound Worker, Walking
Sparring
Ballista.
Partner.
Yeah, it's got Sparring Construct from Dominaria, which is pretty awful in the deck, but it is in the deck, and it does do good things sometimes. But yeah, so it's got Walking Ballista, Hangerback Walker, Steel Overseer to kind of buff those, Ravager to buff those, and Hardened Scales to kind of tie all of it together. So it's like a mono-green affinity deck. And you want Hardened Scales in the deck so bad, because Hardened Scales just makes everything else so good, so you kind of want to mulligan to that card. But even when you don't, the deck's still pretty explosive. And the best card in the deck by miles is Arcbound Ravager. The deck needs sack outlets to make Arcbound Workers and Sparring Constructs do stuff. But it also wants to just kind of make a critical mass, where it will attack you with 4 creatures when you have 3 blockers, and whichever one you don't block becomes a 10/10 and kills you or whatever.
Right.
And it plays Inkmoth Nexus, and I found you win a lot of games with Inkmoth Nexus in that deck, especially because you're already playing 4 Inkmoth, but you're also playing Ancient Stirrings. So there's a lot of times where you'll cast an Ancient Stirrings, and you're looking for specifically Arcbound Ravager or Inkmoth Nexus just to get fast kills. And Arcbound Ravager and Hardened Scales work incredible together, where it's every time you sack an artifact or Ravager, it gets 2 counters on it. And then when you sack the Ravager, it gets that many counters, however many counters it had, +1 on whatever it's moving it to. So it's Inkmoth and Ravagers just become lethal so quickly. You can just... I killed somebody on turn 4 by just playing a Ravager, having Darksteel Citadel, and playing attacking with Inkmoth. It was ridiculous.
That was my experience of losing to the deck.
Yeah, it was I had no board, but I had, it might have been... Oh, yeah, it was turn 4, but I had an Opal, 2 Dark Steels, a Forest, and an Inkmoth or something. Maybe it was just 1 Dark Steel. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But I had a Hardened Scales in play. I play a Hardened Scales for the turn. I play a Ravager, animate my Inkmoth, sack an artifact to Ravager. It becomes a 6-power guy because it enters the battlefield with 3 counters thanks to the 2 Hardened Scales. Then I sack another artifact. It becomes... a 9-power guy, and I sack it all to I sack it to itself, put it on Inkmoth, and they're dead. And it's just that happened from no board, and I just had Hardened Scales in play, and I think my opponent was on humans, and they thought they were just totally safe. I was dead on board. So it's very explosive, but it's slower. It's slower than normal affinity, which I found to be the big issue with the deck, is that while it's capable of more explosive starts than normal affinity, on average, it is slower because it's kind of glutted at the 2-drop slot, and it doesn't have as good of a curve as normal affinity does. And some of the things it's doing take a little bit longer to get going. Whereas normal affinity, Cranioplating is just faster than Steel Overseer and Throne of Geth. It just is. It just is haste damage out of nowhere a lot of the time, and this deck was kind of lacking Cranioplating, I guess. That was something I really felt like I was missing in the deck.
The versions that I played against online had cranial plating.
Well, I think you can play cranial plating. The list I had didn't, but it just kind of is more of the same problem in the deck, where it's just everything in your deck is a 2-drop, which is kind of awkward. So I think you could fit cranial plating in there. I think there's definitely room for improvement in the deck. It just didn't. It just felt a little clunky for me. So for right now, I'm going to put it back down. But I think there's definitely something there. It's definitely a powerful deck. And, it's seeing success on Magic Online, and it's definitely fun to play. So, if you want to, test out a deck, and, maybe you already had Affinity, but you just, didn't feel like playing Affinity or whatever, and you wanted to try something new, strong recommend testing it. It's very fun to play. It's just, to me, it felt like you were trading explosiveness for resiliency in, Hangerback and Walking Ballista, kind of a slightly better late game, but against the decks you wanted it against, Jeskai and Blue-White and these control decks, it didn't even really get you there. You still lost those decks anyway, so I think I would just be playing normal affinity if I wanted to play, Arcbound Ravager right now, but Yeah, I don't know. I thought the deck was really fun. It was a cool deck. Definitely worth trying out. Just I don't think it's quite the right metagame for it.
Okay. All right. Questiones from the Discord. Why don't we do this? We'll do the second one first because it's faster.
Sure.
So this could the second question that we got is, how can you tell when a matchup is so bad you shouldn't devote sideboard slots to it? Okay. Here is my take, and you may have a differing opinion. There are certain things, so I'll use the Delver deck as an example because it's what I've been working on most recently. You can't beat burn ever. You just can't. So I tried Pulse of Marasa. I tried Kitchen Finks. I tried you can't really play Thragtusk, but I thought about it for like a hot minute. I was like, maybe. And what I came to ultimately is those things in and of themselves are fine, but devoting an entire slot to one matchup to take me from 10%, 5%. I mean, like, I don't know that I've ever beaten burn with that deck. Maybe I have once or twice, but it's very rare. It involves a confluence of like very good luck on your part and very bad luck on their part. So, I toyed around even with like adding stuff like a bunch of spells. It's not enough. And by the time I was putting 4 cards in my sideboard for burn and still losing, like that was the point where I was like, you know what? I will just hope to not play it, and I will play things that will allow me to beat other aggro decks that are like, I would much rather have, if I'm going to devote 4 slots to something, it's going to be humans. I'm going to play something that hoses them, because I am one with burn performing poorly. I'm less likely to face it, except apparently on Magic Online where everybody plays burn. I played against more burn in the past 3 weeks than I have in forever, but so I guess the short answer is, once you have used up, I don't know, 2 slots, I think that's probably about the max, and they've got to be like ringers. Like I would bring in, I would consider like 2 Stony Silence is probably fine if you're just like cold to affinity, but if you've got like 2 Stony Silence, 2 Kataki, and an Ancient Grudge, that's too much. Like you're probably going to beat them, but you're going to lose to a ton of other stuff that you wouldn't have lost to before. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. And I think you were right on all of that. To me, though, it's like, I think you can just look at just like a straight up number. It's like, if you are trying to devote more than 2 sideboard slots to one matchup specifically in Modern, then you should probably just not devote more sideboard slots to it. I think you can just, like, once you get to the point where it's like, I need 3 cards for this matchup to beat this matchup, then you should either A, look at switching decks, B, like, look at how prevalent the deck is. So, like, for me, this comes up a lot with Tron, where it's like, oh, I'm playing this deck. Like, how many sideboard slots do I realistically need to beat Tron? Oh, 5? Okay. Am I going to beat Tron if I put 5 sideboard slots in? I'm like 60%, maybe. Maybe then. It's like, well, it's probably too many. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to concede the matchup. I mean, it's like, I think 2 is a good spot to be, because it's like, at 2, It's not that big a percentage of your sideboard. You can realistically just put 2 sideboard slots to this bad matchup to try and get some percentage there. You're still likely to you're not like having 2 sideboard slots for that matchup is still decently likely to give you a good chance to see one of those cards in, a couple mulligans. Like if it's not in your 7, you mulligan to 6, you're still like pretty likely to see one of those 2 cards. Whereas like if you just had 1, you're not super likely to see it. So for me, I think the number's 2. One way we've talked about before to kind of mitigate this is just have generically good cards and plans for them, where it's like, yeah, hey, maybe like I need against burn I need 2 kitchen things specifically, right? But like, you can also play Dispel, which is good against Storm or whatever, and then bring those in the burn matchup. So it's like you have 4 sideboard slots for burn, but it's not really just for burn. So it's like, I think that's kind of what good players do to kind of get around the, like, I still need sideboard slots for this matchup. It's like, well, I'm just going to put sideboard slots in. I'm going to put cards in my sideboard for other decks, and then just know that, like, hey, I can bring them in this matchup that's bad. And I think when people say they're just going to concede the matchup, that's something they do a lot, where it's like, if for your decks, like, specifically, you're talking about Team or Delver, right? Where it's like,
Yep.
You can't beat burn. Well, it's like, well, maybe you don't play a single sideboard slot for burn, right? Where it's like, yeah, I'm just not going to play, like, I'm not going to play any Kitchen Finks, I'm not going to play any Thragtusk, I'm not going to play any Pulse and Rasa, none of that. But I still think it's, like, a huge benefit to my deck to play, 2 negates in my sideboard because it's good against Storm or Jeskai or whatever. And, like, I probably want some Dispels because it's good against whatever combo deck, ad nauseum, I don't know. And it's like, well, I can bring all of those cards in the burn matchup, even though I'm not playing any cards for burn.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the way you want to look at it, is like, yeah, like, I'm going to concede this matchup, but I'm just not going to do it in a way, like, I'm going to play no sideboard cards for it, but at the same time I'm going to have like 6 sideboard cards for it, right? I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, let me bring this up. The thing, the root cause of my deck's particular weakness to burn is structural to the deck. It is not something that can be changed. And like because the reality is you need to double fetch shock almost every game. And
sure, but like
that is why you lose. And there's no way to get that life back that doesn't involve double fetch shocking. So like you can get that life back with a Pulse of Marasa, or like, a big chunk of it, but you still have to do the thing that's making you lose the life that is making that vulnerability in the first place.
Well, maybe, but like let me throw it to you this way, like, maybe you're approaching it wrong. Like, maybe your deck also has trouble against Jund. Like, I don't know that it does, but maybe you do, right? And it's like, I want to play Leyline of Sanctity in my sideboard to be better against these Thoughtseize decks. Well, it's like, you could also bring that in against Burn, and it would just stone cold, just hose Burn out to the point where they can't win. But it's like, you're not playing it for Burn. Even though, like, you might be kind of playing that for Burn. But it's like, yeah, maybe like the life gain cards you tried aren't right, but it's like, there are other ways to approach beating Burn, It's like, maybe the right way for you to beat Burn in your deck is to play a bunch of Stone Rains in your sideboard. Like, maybe you should actually just be playing 4 Molten Rains because you want game against Tron, but then you also just bring those in against Burn, and like, you just hope to mana screw them in that matchup because they're playing like a low land count deck. And like, sometimes that's not going to work against Burn, but like, you're conceding the matchup anyway, so the games where it does work, it's like free percentage, right?
Sure.
Like, that's kind of what I'm saying here, is like, if the matchup is that bad that you like realistically, like, yeah, you saying like part of the problem is that like you need to fetch shock every turn, right? But like, what if your sideboard was literally just like 4 Life Goes On, 4 Feed the Clan, 4 Thragtusk? Like, you'd probably be burned like every time if that was your sideboard,
Sure.
right? But it's like, that's not realistic.
And then lose to everything else.
Yes, but like, it is realistic that you would play cards to beat Tron. You could also bring in like in Molten Rains, or that you would play cards to beat Jund and Leyline of Sanctity, and you'd bring that in there, So I don't know. It's like I think the point here is that like once you go past 2, it's like yeah, you don't want to be devoting that many slots to that one matchup, but like you can find other ways to approach the matchup creatively, and just like if you're already conceding it, just kind of hope to get lucky and get there, which is something that happens a lot, honestly. Like in the format, it's like, oh, my deck can't ever beat BridgeVine, but I'm playing these 4 Leyline of the Voids. I'm just gonna mulligan to 2 and hope it's in my hand. Like that just happens in Modern. It's just part and parcel of the format.
I guess the answer that I came to ultimately was play Bug because you get Collective Brutality.
Sure.
And that card's great against Burn. Like, it's generically great. It's specifically great against them. So that and like having Inquisition too is like quite good. I mean, even Thoughtseize, right? Like, if you're not fetch shocking to Thoughtseize, like you're gaining a life by taking their Lava Spike.
Sure.
So the other one, the sort of the larger question, is I'll read the whole thing. So, as someone who's slowly tiptoeing towards more competitive Magic, I notice people discussing their matchup numbers as well as their sideboard plans. I understand getting there takes repetition as well as sometimes through note-taking for games and matches. What are the contents of your notes if you keep them, and what are you writing down as you learn a new deck / attempt to improve a weak matchup? This is an exceptional question. And I think our answers are going to be very different. So why don't you start, and then I will, because you are certainly, you've been much more successful in the competitive side by design. I mean, that's like,
yeah,
that's what you devote your time to. And then I feel like I have some insights, but more from a deck building perspective.
All right, sure. So this question has a couple parts to it. For me, in note taking, I don't really take notes at all when I play Magic. I will take notes if I'm like Thoughtseizing or using a Vendilion Click, or I'm surgically and I get to see their hand. Sure, those are all of the notes I use at all when I'm playing Magic. Is just literally the contents of their hand, and then I'll keep life totals. And I think it's important to keep life totals to make decisions where it's like you have a lot of stuff running through your mind while you're playing Magic. Obviously, you're thinking of plays, you're thinking what can they have. There's all this stuff going on. Also, trying to keep mental life totals is just too much. It's not worth putting that tax on your brain. So, keeping good life totals is important.
Yes. Also, and not legal at Comp RL.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
relevant.
Yeah, I mean that is relevant. But the point is just like being able to quickly reference like a life total when you just like try to make a decision on, can I attack? Are we racing? Whatever. So for me, the notes are very limited to exclusively what is in hand. So that's the one part of the question is the notes, and I tend to just stay away from notes specifically because I think taking notes kind of gives away information, and I think it's a skill to kind of be able to internalize information. I think that's a skill you want in Magic, and like you might not be good at it when you're starting to get competitive, but like internalizing information, like trying to remember what cards you saw, stuff like that, is something you're going to want to be able to do. And I think that's person dependent. So for like me, I'm very good at remembering stuff like that. So it's like I don't need to take a note on it. I'm going to remember like I saw this card, and this card. I want to sideboard this way or whatever. But it's like maybe if you have trouble with that, that's something you want to take notes on. I don't know. It's person dependent, I guess. But I think part of my game is being able to remember a lot of information and use that. So I'm not going to use notes. So it's like his question about notes was kind of twofold, where it's like, okay, do I want to take notes, and like, are these notes going to influence my sideboard plans? And for me, it's like, I spend so much time testing during the week, and when I'm testing during the week, I'm trying to figure out sideboard plays. That's mostly what I'm doing, where it's like the baseline of learning your deck in Modern is you know how your deck works, you know how to play your deck, and I don't think you can go to an event when you don't have those things. Like, you need to be able to do that before you can play competitively. But like, once you're playing competitively, it's assumed that you can do that, and then it's like, well, how am I sideboarding? How do matchups go? And so for me, it's like I spend a lot of time testing during the week, trying to figure out how matchups go, more so than like, oh, I'm cutting this card or this card, right? Where it's like, you want to figure out what actually matters. And so for me, it's like, he's kind of approaching this where it's like, well, in this, I want to cut, 2 of this card, 2 of that card, and 1 of this card, so that I can bring in 2 of this, 2 of that, and 1 of that, or whatever. And I think that's a fine way to approach the game, but it's like, for me, like, the card I cut in my sideboard plan isn't as relevant as understanding what matters in the matchup. So it's like, if I know what matters, like, just for instance, I'm playing, my blue deck against Jund, right? Where it's like, I know what matters is actual card numbers. So it's like, when I go to sideboard, I know I'm never cutting a card that's card advantage-y, right? Where it's like, I'm never going to cut my Search for His Cant, I'm never going to cut my Jace, my Teferi, cards like that. That's just never going to happen. Those aren't coming out. But, like, I understand that the rest of my deck is not sacred, where it's like, you're playing against the deck that, you're playing against Jund, where they're all, Tarmogoyfs and Bobs and whatever, Dark Confidants, Grim Flayers, whatever. They're all, kind of 2-drop creatures, 3-drop creatures, stuff like that. Well, Path to Exile is going to be excellent. Well, maybe I'm playing against Mardu, which is a very similar strategy, but in that matchup, Path to Exile is not excellent because it's just not. It doesn't line up with their threats very well. But like, I still know that like the baseline of the matchup is that what matters is card advantage. Like, I need to be generating card advantage. I need to be focusing on the cards that do that. So it's like, once you understand what the matchup goes, it's like, well, I can cut some of these other cards that don't matter, and I'm bringing in cards that draw cards or cards that generate a ton of board presence, like an Elspeth maybe, right? Or like a Thragtusk if I was playing a green deck. Something that's going to generate a heavy board presence. And a point for me is like, the matchup numbers don't matter in a matchup, and the sideboard plans don't matter as much as understanding what actually is going on in the matchup and what's going to cause a win and a loss, I guess. So I guess for me, the point is that I don't take that many notes, and I'm not as number focused as I am theory focused, if that makes sense. But I think, and I certainly know people that are more number focused, and I think that's like a successful strategy you can take to be good at Magic. I think it's totally acceptable. It's just like, that's not how I approach the game, I guess. And then the last part of his question is saying, what are you writing down as you learn a new deck, attempt to improve a weak matchup? And again, improving the weak matchup is kind of more just understanding what is going on in the matchup for me. Learning a new deck is just, learning a new deck is easier, right? It's just, I'm going to play this, I'm going to see what went wrong, I'm going to try and not make that thing go wrong next time. I'm going to try and figure out some interactions I was missing. Maybe is there like a better time to sacrifice this creature, or is there a better time to activate this ability, or whatever. That's just stuff that comes through repetition. You just kind of do it and you learn it. Improving a weak matchup is interesting, though, because it's like, sometimes a matchup is weak because you don't understand what is going on and you're playing it poorly, or sometimes the matchup is weak because it just is fundamentally a bad matchup, like you said, where you're doing a bunch of damage to yourself versus the burn deck, right? So for me, the first step to improving a weak matchup is understanding what is actually going on, what matters. Like, maybe you have a weak Jund matchup because your deck literally has no cards that generate card advantage in it at all, or you have a weak burn matchup because you can't gain life at all. You just are like playing another blue-red deck and you don't have a single card that gains life in your deck. Whatever. So, to improve the weak matchup, you want to first understand what is actually causing the matchup to happen, and then it's like, well, how can I improve it? I mean, there's like a ton of ways you can go about it, right? Where we discussed like the burn thing earlier, where it's like, can I just kind of hope to get lucky with playing other cards? Can I play this matchup differently? Can I like try to be more assertive with the cards that I do have? Can I try to be more conservative with the cards that I do have? Like, I'm playing against blue-white control. Like maybe I think humans is really bad against blue-white control, but it's because like it was bad because I kept losing to sweepers, right? Well, it's like, well, maybe the answer is I just make a rule for myself when I play in this matchup. I never have, more than two creatures in play at a time, unless I'm swinging for lethal or something, right? Sure. So it's like the more important thing to improve the weak matchup is understanding what exactly is going on, what is beating you, and then making sure that those things don't happen, or that you make the things that are like actually winning you games happen, right? So I don't know. I don't think that was like a perfectly clear answer to the question, but the point here is like more than taking notes. It's kind of just trying to understand fundamentally what is going on, and it's like if taking notes will help you understand fundamentally what is going on, then that is what's important, and then you should take notes for that matchup. But what comes down to is understanding the fundamentals of the matchup. Like it kind of boils down to a couple things in Magic. Like maybe this matchup is about 2-for-1s. Maybe this matchup is about spending mana more efficiently, or just investing more mana into the board. Maybe the matchup is just about life totals, like burn, or number of spells cast, where it's like the first player to double spell is going to win. That's a common thing in Standard, for instance. And yeah, so just kind of understanding the matchup, I guess, is going to be my answer to that.
So I don't take detailed notes during the match. As soon as I am finished with the match, I do write stuff down. The thing that I most often write down is like I have a pad, and after every match it says like, wish I had a blank, like wish I had a whatever, wish I had a Courser of Crufix, wish I had a Back to Nature, wish I had a whatever. And if I'm at an event where I can play 6, 7, 8, 9 matches, when I get to the end, I look that stuff over and I'm like, I wrote down like 4 times that I really wanted Back to Nature. So I will put a Back to Nature in the 75.
Sure.
Because it's, for whatever reason, it was the thing that I wanted, right? In terms of getting a feel, I'm much more of a like instinctual player. So a lot of the time that I spend learning a deck is like when people say getting a feel for the deck, like I'm getting a feel for the rhythm and the play pattern, and less like, oh, this person is playing, well, like let's say burn, right?
Yep.
I'm not necessarily thinking they need to cast 7 spells that do 3 points of damage. I'm thinking, what am I doing? Like, can I execute my game plan? And like, what does that feel like? Am I casting 2 spells a turn? Am I countering the first thing that they do no matter what? So like with Delver, the version of Delver that I'm playing right now, there's a ton of matchups, and I tried it where I would just let them do stuff. So like against Tron, you would think that it'd be kind of like a bad matchup, but it's actually really good. And the key to that is counter whatever they play first.
Sure.
And it was, to me, like before I had played the match a bunch of times, it's sort of counterintuitive, because a lot of times that happens with a disrupting shoal.
Sure.
So I will start off the game on the play 2-for-1ing myself to get them, to like counter an expedition map. But what I found over time, and also my experience of playing the deck, is if I had like 2 lands expedition map and a payoff, or like a Tron land and expedition map and a couple of stars, or like Tron land expedition map ancient stirrings, I would keep that hand in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But if that expedition map gets countered, you're screwed.
Yeah, you're gonna be in trouble.
And a lot of decks have that, where they're like, they know what hands they can keep, and then if you just disrupt that plan, you can go on about your merry way, because they don't have any backup way to set up.
I think what you're saying is like very similar to what I said, in that I think you're kind of saying like you're trying to like you go about it in a different way, where it's like you kind of learn through repetition, right? But you're saying that what matters is learning what actually matters in the matchup, right? So it's like there, for your example, you're saying that against Delver versus Tron, what matters is stopping their setup, right? Like, so getting ahead early, right? That's what matters. That's what's going to win you the most games. Mm-hmm. And it's like it makes sense, because it's like if you don't get ahead early and you stay at parity, then they're going to blow past you later, right? Because they just have so much more mana, right? And all these crazy powerful cards. And like, you're just not going to win that battle. So like, it makes sense, but it's like you learn through repetition, like, to do this counterintuitive play that's going to win you games. And that is honestly like a lot of the way I learn playing. Like, I think for me, it's like I will lose a lot when I'm playing online during the week, right? Where it's like I will test online and I'm going to lose a ton where I'm trying different wacky stuff out, because that's what helps me understand what's going on in the matchup. And I think for you, it's the same thing, right? You said like, well, I had to try this, right? I tried the other way, it didn't work. I tried this, oh, it did work. I played it some more times, I kept doing this, it kept working, right?
Right.
So it's like you found out what mattered, and it was just through repetition. And it's like, I think not enough people are scared to lose and just like take away from the loss, like what mattered there. Why did I lose?
Yeah, and I guess it's not even just necessarily repetition, but it's iteration.
Sure.
So like, you know, I had to try, you know, like figuring out what mattered, but I couldn't figure out what mattered until I really learned out what didn't matter.
Sure.
You know, because it is, let me tell you, it's an odd feeling to counter a chromatic star. But if you counter that chromatic star and they don't have any way to cast the ancient stirrings that they need to get the rest of their lands, they will do nothing for the 4 turns that it is going to take you to beat them down with like a Tarmogoyf for the Rancor on it.
Yep, they're going to lose. And like, honestly, it makes like your play makes sense in the sense that it's like I'm 2 for 1 myself now, so I don't get 8 for 1 later when they cast their Ugin.
Sure.
Right? Like that makes sense. Like, and again, like what he's trying to figure out here is like, how do you attempt to improve your weak matchup, right? Like, that's what he wants to know, is how do I learn about my new deck and how do I attempt to improve my weak matchup? And I think honestly what it comes down to is you lose. Like, you lose a lot, right? And then,
oh yeah, be ready for that.
Yeah, but then like what's important is like taking the information from the loss. And it's like he's looking at like this note, like what detailed thing in the notes do I do to like learn during these losses? And it's like the truth is that doesn't matter, right? It's like you can do, it just is whatever works for you, that you manage to take stuff out of the loss. Like, that's what matters, is that like you gain something from the loss. It's not how you gained it, it's that you did, right? So it's like, it doesn't, like, maybe your play of like, oh, just repetition, maybe it's mine of like going back to look at fundamental turns, stuff like that, where it's like I already have enough repetitions. To me, like, it's part of something, like, I've played so much, the repetition doesn't help as much as analyzing certain turns, whatever. I found a process that works for me. But the point is that we're both taking the information from our losses, and then also, you know, you're taking information from the wins too, right? Like in your example, it's like, I lost, I tried this, I won, I tried it again, I won again. Boom. I think we found something here, right?
And I will say for big events, I do bring a sideboard guide with me usually. And that is less a function of its sort of general utility. Like I wouldn't bring a sideboard guide with me to F&M, but when there is not only like something at stake in the sense that like if I'm playing in a GP, like I paid $80, so I want to make sure that I'm not like making silly mistakes or forgetting things. And when you add in the component of like travel, variability in sleep quality, food or lack thereof, you know, like all of those things that sort of go into playing at a big event like that, I want to have something where like I don't have to think. So that pre-work pays off in that sense. And also I can, you know, ideally, you know, I can sort of fall back on that instinct developed over the course of practicing with the deck, that just I can go, okay, like look at that other person's turn one play and sort of think a little bit and then go, okay, they're going to try and get ahead. I need to stop them from getting ahead. If I don't have a way to stop them from getting ahead, I need to figure out what I'm going to do in the next game. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. Repetition, iteration. If taking notes helps you, definitely take them. I don't analyze turns in the way that you do. Like I honestly, as soon as a match is over, unless there's like a sweet play, I immediately forget everything that happened. Sure. So that's why like I have to write something down right when I'm done. Like before I put my cards away, I'll be like, watch out for X, really felt like I wanted Y, you know, add a land, ? And then clean up my stuff and, you know, shake it off, play the next round. But if you're a diligent note taker, I don't know. Actually, that's a good judge question. I don't know if you're allowed to take hidden information notes during a match.
What do you mean? Like,
if you had like a legal pad or something,
sure.
If you could take notes on like the third page down and then have it be closed when your opponent, you know, like so your opponent couldn't read it. I don't know if that's allowed. Okay.
Yeah, you're allowed to do that.
All right, so there you go. So I mean, that's because you had said that you would be concerned about like giving away information to your opponent if you're taking notes during a match. I guess if you went the extra mile to keep them hidden, then it wouldn't be as bad.
Well, so it's like, for me, it's like I don't think they're gonna see what you're writing down as much, whereas it's like I'm taking notes on something, so they think like you're focusing on that thing, right? So it's like I don't even care like that you're hiding your notes from me. It's that, oh, you wanted to take notes because I did this thing, or you saw X card. Well, it's like, well, why does that matter to you? It's like, well, maybe you saw that I have like BridgeVine in my deck and you took a note that you want to rest in peace, so like maybe I should be like out for graveyard hate. Like, yeah, obviously that one's like, you know, pretty obvious that like you would want graveyard hate, but maybe it's like I don't know, this artifact was like particularly key in my victory, and it's like maybe I should be watching out for a pithing needle post board or something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not as much like what they're writing down as like when they're taking notes, in my opinion, for like that I was referring to there, I guess.
Yeah, I guess the other thing that these two questions kind of dovetail together, you know, attempting to improve a weak matchup is also like partially a function of like how likely you even are to see it.
Sure.
You know, I would do a little bit of research, and, you know, if you sit down with your deck and you're like, okay, I have, actually, this is a good point. I do like a spreadsheet. I do like a win-loss spreadsheet for when I'm playing on Magic Online. I just have one like open in a tab, and I'll be like, all right, played against this. You can get super granular with it where like, oh, I was on the play, and then, you know, I won this percentage and lost this percentage. But like, if you just keep a win-loss against like against archetypes, it's a good thing to be able to refer back to. And, you know, if you sort of go down the road with keeping the spreadsheet and you look and you're like, wow, I'm beating the top 5 most popular decks 30% of the time, you need to pick a different deck.
Sure.
Just
and I think
straight up.
I think that information is incredibly valuable. I actually know a lot of people that will take that method of, like, I just keep track of, like, my games and what I played against on Magic Online. And I think that's definitely valid. But for me, like, I have tried that, and I didn't like it, honestly. Like, I thought that the information was often misleading to me, because it's like, knowing why you lost was more important to me than knowing that I lost X amount of the time, because it's like, you might have lost for different reasons, different times. It's like, maybe I'm 60% in the games I played against Hollow One, right? But it's like, maybe the first 10 times I played against Hollow One, I was approaching a matchup this way, and then the next 10 times I was approaching a completely different way. And it's like, yeah, maybe I'm 60% overall, but maybe I was 40% and now I'm 80%, right? And then it's like, I'm 60% in the numbers, but like the way I approached it the second time was a lot more effective. But like the numbers don't show that in just a spreadsheet. Or it's like, maybe you're playing against, you know, Hollow One that's just Hollow One, and then recently, like, your last 10 matchups have been Hollow One that's also playing BridgeVine, and it's like, well, you know, maybe I was winning 55%, now I'm only winning 47%. So it's like, unless they're incredibly detailed, I feel like they can be misleading. And for me, it just, like, comes down to, like, personally, I feel like I gain more from just analyzing, why did I lose that match? Like, what caused me to lose the match I just lost? So it's like, I think a tool more valuable to me than keeping a note on the match I played is going back and watching the replay, honestly. And, like, looking like, oh, hey, I made a mistake here. Like, I could have played this land tapped instead of, like, fetch shock, whatever, you know? And it's like, I feel like I gain, like, personally, I gain a lot more by like, watching a replay than I do by having a spreadsheet that says this information or whatever. And it's like, I think there are places for both, but, again, like, to me, it's like, it's more just, like, understanding what happened than, you know, having a number that I can throw at a wall, I guess.
Okay. It's fair. Yeah, I mean, like I said, give the spreadsheet a shot, though. You know, I just use, like, the Google Sheets. It's super easy. It's all online. You don't have to worry about it.
And I will say with your spreadsheet thing is, like, if your options are I'm going to do nothing or I'm going to do a spreadsheet, like, the spreadsheet is infinitely better. It's like,
sure,
it's not close. It's like, as long, like, putting the effort is what matters the most, right? So it's like, if you find that the spreadsheet is working for you, that it's giving you useful information, then by all means do that. Like, it is very much a personal thing.
Indeed. All right. Any parting shots before we get to it?
Nope.
Excellent. So before we get to the Spice Rack, you can visit us on Facebook, facebook.com/turn1Thoughtseize, all spelled out. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at T1Thoughtseize, and Zach is at A22EN. You can watch a stream at twitch.tv/T1Thoughtseize, sponsored by our friends at Card Hoarder. You can see our YouTube videos at youtube.com/turn1Thoughtseize, all spelled out. You can read my columns at blog.cardkingdom.com. You can become a member of the Thoughtseize Cabal at patreon.com/turn1Thoughtseize, all spelled out. And of course, you can see all of our content on turn1Thoughtseize.com. The Spice Rack for this week is an oldie but goodie of the graveyard variety. So this is a Future Sight Uncommon, a pool of cards, which, by the way, like, if you're ever stuck on a brew and you're like, God, I just want, like, a neat card to build around, just look at all of the Future Sight Uncommons. because there are some doozies in there.
Dude, Future
This
Sight
bad
is
boy.
awesome for the record. Just not relevant to this card. Well, kind of, but
It kind of is.
not. Yeah. Besides the point, Future Sight is incredible, dude. I think it's honestly like the most impactful set in Modern.
I have not thought about it enough to make a statement about that, but you're probably right. So the card is Yixlid Jailer. Is 1 and a black for a zombie wizard. It's a 2/1, and a very simple, a deceptively simple line of text is the only rules text on the card. Cards in graveyards lose all abilities. So, no Vengevine, no Bridges, no Grave Crawlers, no Dredge, no Narcomoeba. Yes. Oh, timestamps. God, this card is complicated.
Okay, I thought timestamps might happen on this. Regardless, this card's great against Dredgefine. It's a nightmare.
Yes. Like so many cards in Future Sight, it is a rules nightmare. Okay. It doesn't work with Snapcaster because Snapcaster gives it flashback. It does work with Past in Flames because Past in Flames loses flashback. And
Well, so it would, it's a timestamp thing, so it actually would work with Snapcaster Mage. Essentially, it's like, if you have a Yixlid Jailer in play and they play a Snapcaster, the card they target has flashback. Now, if your opponent, it has flashback until end of turn, they can cast it, even with the Yixlid Jailer in play. Now, if your opponent cast the Snapcaster Mage, like targeted a Lightning Bolt, went to combat, attacked you, and then like mid-combat you activate an Aether Vial and put a Yixlid Jailer in play, then they would not be able to cast their card at that point because of timestamps. So it's all a whole bunch of craziness, and what matters here is that it stops Bridge from Below and Dredge and Vengevine and all of those things, and it's a card that you can vial into play out of, humans if you wanted to. You could certainly do that. It's certainly like a graveyard-centric card that humans could use if they so chose. You could name wizards in human, and I think you could still play your Meddling Mage off of that cavern or whatever. So
yep.
Yeah, I mean that's a thing probably.
But
it's a very confusing card, but it's still a 2/1. It attacks for 2.
Yeah, it's a thing. So, anyways, Yixlid Jailer shuts off all of the relevant things in Dredgevine, Vengevine, Dredge, Hollow One. You get no Flame Wake Phoenix, no Blood Ghast.
Yep.
Yeah.
You still might lose the Hollow One, but they aren't going to.
Still might lose. Hey, that is a risk that we take.
Sure.
But all right, that does it for this week. We will catch you next time. Thank you so much for hanging out. Yeah, we'll catch you later.
Love you guys.